Hi, friends.
Hi, friends.
We're back. It's episode 72 of The Brunch and Judge.
72 means nothing to
It
me.
means absolutely nothing. Um, no. I'm trying to pull out something.
Unless you're playing 72 card pickup.
You mean 52 card pickup?
With a deck of tarot,
A deck of tarot,
right?
72. That's fair.
Isn't that right?
A deck of
72.
72 card tarot card pickup.
Yes. Yes. Isn't it 72 in a deck of tarot?
I think so. I think that varies too. I'm not sure.
Oh, does it?
I
Oh,
don't
okay.
know. I'm not a tarot expert just yet. So, but anyway,
With a deck of tarot,
a
since
deck
we
of
do the
tarot.
tarot on this show.
Well, we are your hosts. I'm April,
And I'm Claire.
and this week our topic for Brunch and Judge is going to be around the world,
Yes.
which tells you absolutely nothing. So have
No,
to
it does not.
have to hang on in. I will say, we got a comment on one of our videos. I don't know if you saw it, Claire.
I think I did.
In which
I think I did.
someone who was watching us, I think it was on YouTube, uh, was like, "Hey, you guys should like give a warning to skip ahead, like 10, 15 minutes." And I was like,
I
"Oh,
saw that.
thank you. I do appreciate the feedback because that's how we improve." I do put in the notes for those of you who don't know. In the notes of each episode, I put the timestamp of when
You
each
do.
story starts so that if you don't want to listen to our ridiculous bullshit at the beginning of the episode, you don't have to. So, just a
Right.
heads up, check out the notes. It'll send you forward. Usually it's about 15, 20 minutes, but sometimes we get really off track.
carried
So,
carried away,
apologies.
or we're really impassioned about what we're complaining about.
It's true. Or like one thing leads to another and to another. You know how it is. So if you'd like to skip ahead, just check the notes. The timestamp will be there. So, in that thought, Claire, what are you
Yes.
judging this week?
I don't know that it's so much a judge. Here's a story.
I
I'm gonna
take
tell you a story
story time.
about what happened, about something that happened. Was this last weekend? I can't even remember. No, it was the weekend before. Because last weekend was Memorial Day. It was the weekend before. I should have told it, but I forgot about it. But now it's popped back into my memory.
Mm-hmm.
This stuff happens. Um, I was eating dinner with some friends downtown, and we were leaving,
Mm-hmm.
and this car comes. It's on the square where we are, and it's a big giant roundabout, or the circle of death, as some people like to call it.
Right, right,
Um,
right.
this car comes like, I mean, squealing around the circle, and we all kind of comment because where we parked, we were walking to our vehicles because we would have had to cross the street and on down, and this car comes squealing around, and we're all like, "Good God, that car was like going awfully fast for around
For a
the
roundabout,
square."
right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then we hear, as it goes right past the corner where we would have had to turn to like walk to our cars, we heard more squealing, and then we heard a crash and glass shattering. And we were like, "Oh my God, did that car hit another car?"
Oh my
And so we
God.
kind of like jogged down around the corner, and no, it didn't hit another car. It like lost control and ran into a fucking building.
Oh,
It
oh.
ran into the Justice Center.
Well,
Like,
that's not gonna go well for them.
no. There's like a tunnel where you can drive back through the Justice Center to like a parking lot behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And it had run into like the corner where that tunnel is,
Uh,
and it like took out a lamppost.
oh
So there was
dear.
like a lamppost laying on the ground, and the little fancy topper was in the middle of the road, and all these people. By the time we rounded the corner, the driver had already hopped out of the car and run away. Yes.
They just left the car
And like,
behind.
yes. And airbags were deployed.
They
I mean,
weren't
we
like,
couldn't
they're
let,
gonna track me down from the
right.
car. Idiot.
Right. So we saw the car. So it's like all these people were rushing over. So I'm like, has anybody called 911? So I
Yeah.
called 911 for the third time in my life.
Woohoo! Go Claire.
First time was when my dad fell over the
Mm-hmm.
banister at our house. Second time was when I saw a, a car hit a motorcycle when we were doing the ghost walk this
Right.
past October. And now this. And so then they were like, okay, we've gotten multiple calls on this. I'm like, okay, good. I'm glad somebody else has like called. Good, good. But it was wild. It was just like all of a
Yeah.
sudden all these people were there and then they're like, there's nobody in the car. The driver left. And we're like, wait, what? In that short amount of time, it took us to like round the corner. Somebody had already hopped out of the car and just taken off.
And booked it. That's hilarious.
Yes, airbags deployed. I'm like, really? With the airbag deployed like that? That's kind of nuts. And they were like, yeah, there's a woman's purse in the front seat. And it's like, were there two people? Was this car stolen? I
Oh
have so
my
many questions.
goodness.
I have so many
Probably,
questions.
probably she was drunk, and so she's like, I gotta get out of here, or I'm gonna get, arrested and for this. So
Well, it was found out the next day. It was a drunk driver.
knew it.
They did catch him because
Right,
they're
right.
stupid. They think they can outrun people, and you're just like, no, no,
It's
no.
your car. It's registered to you, idiot. They can
I
find
know.
you.
Yeah, I was like, if it's stolen, that's one thing,
Right.
but if it's your vehicle, okay, I guess
Boy.
that's my judge. Why do criminals have to be so dumb?
I mean, but
Like, if you're gonna
also,
drink and drive, you're gonna leave your vehicle behind. You think they can't find you?
but also, thank you that most criminals are so dumb that they're easy to
Right.
get. Because, like, thank you.
I mean, it was yes. It
Oh
was
my
it was
gosh.
wild though. We were just standing there like, what is happening right now? All these cars kept coming around the square, and there was just some rando person trying to direct traffic until actual police got there
Right.
to direct traffic. But it was just kind of like, what is happening right now? Like I said, there's a street light, lamp post just like laying on the ground in the
Yeah.
middle of the road. It was kind of mayhem for a minute. It was just like, what? All these people are like checking the car. Nobody was in it. I mean, that's how. I mean, like, how drunk were you that you could move that fast?
Right.
Because he must have crawled through the window because the door wasn't even open. Like, what?
Oh my god.
Like, what is
I love
happening?
it. I mean, I'm incredibly grateful that this idiot hit a building and not a person.
Or another vehicle, yes.
Right,
Because I
because
mean, where it was right where a crosswalk was. So I mean, he
right.
very well could have hit a pedestrian or another car,
So
which
like
I'm glad nobody
incredibly
else was.
grateful for
Yes,
for
nobody
that.
else was
But
involved.
also how like that person the next day was like, fuck, I hit the Justice Center
I
with my
know.
car while I was drunk driving.
I
And then
know.
I left my car there thinking, they'll never find me.
Fine. Yeah, I can run away. I'm gonna go on the
Oh,
limb, running through
Lord.
green space. The woods behind the Justice Center.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yikes.
yeah.
Idiots.
I
Love it.
know.
Love it.
Yes, it was fun times. It was a wild thing to happen. Like right after dinner, we are all like, okay,
Yeah, that's an excellent after dinner activity, call 911 and
it's fine.
you know.
Yeah,
There you
everybody would just kind of like come around the corner and they'd be like, oh,
go.
like in their cars. They're just like, oh, can't go this way. It's like everybody's like doing these U-y things. And finally, I feel like it took too long for the police to show up for this instance because it was just like, I feel like there might be another wreck because
Hmm.
of the way that the road, like everything was situated and people were having to drive around.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It was just like, y'all should have been here faster than this. Like, this was a wreck that's like causing traffic disruption. You all should
Right.
have been here faster.
Eh, I don't know. Maybe
I guess
it's
because
if it's a
nobody
non-injured,
was hurt.
non
Yeah,
whatever, it's probably not quite as vital to get there. I don't know.
I guess. I don't know.
But
Still, it was just like,
good
okay.
judge.
But yeah, that's what happened. It was like I said, it was a couple weekends ago, and I guess life got crazy. But it just popped back in my head, like, oh yeah, I never talked about that. Like, I witnessed this thing that was bizarre, and then later, like the next morning, we all just kind of texted each other, and we were like, did that really happen? Did we?
Was
Did
this real?
we?
Did
Yeah.
we see
Well, and here's the
this?
thing. I know somebody who's on the police force. And here's another thing. The shift people, they don't talk to each other.
Of course not.
So
Why
like
would they?
you ask him, you're like, "Hey, what was that about last night?" And he's like, "I don't know what you're talking about." You're like, "Are you kidding me? A car hit the fucking Justice Center."
And that wasn't like
That's not
textable
that's
news to each
something
other. It's
you
like,
all
hey
just
guys, guess what happened today? Oh.
like yeah, you know. I mean, I get them not talking about like stupid shit like, "Oh, I had somebody get mouthy," or, you know, typical drunk driving stuff, but I'm like, "A car hit the Justice Center." Like I feel
Right.
like that's like kind of significant, But then it's like, because crazy stuff will happen, and you'll go, he'll come in, and you'll be like, "Hey, what was that about?" He's like, "I don't know." It's like, what good are you? You're supposed to give us the tea. Come on. Anyway, yeah, that's my story slash judge, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, happened a couple weekends ago. But yeah, it was crazy. Like what? But anyway, what is your judge or your story or whatever we're doing now?
So my judge this week is, guys, I am officially unemployed. What?
Whoa.
What? At the time of us recording this anyway, I have left my job. I have left it behind. I
It is now in the
am done
past,
with
thank
it.
God.
I returned the keys. I put them on a Star Wars keychain. All of like my office key, my desk key, the building key, the meeting room key, all the keys, all the keys. And I put them on a like R2D2 keychain that was left over from Star Wars Day. And I hand them to my boss, and I'm like, you have to promise me that when you give these keys to the next person, that you will play Darth Vader's theme song in the background. And he was like, yeah, absolutely. That sounds great. And I'm like, you don't even know why that's important to me, but that's fine.
Right.
So I'm like dancing around like a crazy person, having the best time. And what made me laugh is that they very kindly had my last paycheck ready for me on my last day because I had to put all of my time in ahead of time.
Right.
So that they could pay out vacation and everything. And so it's like 3 o'clock. End of day is 6 on Friday, and my boss hands me my check, and I'm like, "Wait, you're gonna pay me now for 3 hours I haven't even worked yet?" And he's like, "Oh yeah." And it's like, so I don't even, and I'm like signing it, depositing it with my phone immediately. He's like, "You can't take it back. Bye." Trying to run out the
You're like
building.
you're like, "I can leave now, thank you."
But no, they were so incredibly short staffed. I stayed to the bitter end, and everyone was like, you could leave. And I was like, I could, but I never have to come back. So like it's fine. I don't
You're
mind
like,
staying.
yeah,
It's
it is what it is.
fine. I like pilling my name off stuff. I'm having a great time. But and I already told this to Claire, but I'm gonna share this with everyone else. So this week has been filled with really kind words and gifts from coworkers. They have gone above and beyond to let me know how much I was appreciated. And that I have really appreciated hearing that because sometimes that job was really hard. So it's nice to know that they all have good, positive associations of me having that job.
Right. Yes.
But the number of times that people were saying things like, I'm such a delight to work with, and that, I make things fun, and that even when things are really bad and everyone's really stressed out, I will come in the room and essentially lighten the mood. And I'm like, oh my God, I am the person who lights up the room. And I went, shit, I'm absolutely going to be on a Dateline episode.
And you're like, "No."
No, why am I the person who lights up a room? It's like, God damn it. It's like, no, I'm supposed to be dark and hateful so that everyone will leave me alone. So,
Because that
guys,
job was
I'm
so terrible. You were just trying to salvage any little bit you could. You're like,
But like I was cracking up because even on my last day, I'm literally fixing schedule issues for a time in which I won't be there.
right.
Like,
You're like, why is this my problem? It's
it's
not.
like, well, I don't know how are we gonna do this. I was like, okay, well, I'll be like, this person, can you work this time and then instead take this time off, and then this person, how about you move your day off to this day so that we can have a 30 week. Like I'm helping people move stuff around so it'll work out, and I'm going, I don't even work here. You got to be able to do this on
You're
your
like,
own now,
I'm
guys.
done.
You got to be able to do it on your own. You can do it. You can have conversations. It'll be fine. But
And
so
now it's not your problem
no,
anymore.
except I did. So when I took this job, I was given a very nicely designed piece of paper from Canva that had like maybe 10 things listed. And I don't mean like explained. I mean like 10 like 1 or 2 word things.
Like bullet points,
Kind of
like
like that that I was responsible for without any
right.
real contact. Like I had worked with the person who had my job, so like she sort of walked me through some things, but uh so like I had nothing really to start with. I left the person who's coming next with a 10-page heavily bulleted document of my job and all of my current contact information for if they have any because I'm sure I forgot something I'm in charge of because I'm in charge of so much stuff. So
right.
I was like, feel free to call or text or email if you have any questions, any concerns, or if you just need to vent. Because, like, I know. Like, I can't write. I know that this job is going to suck your soul and you're going to come across some unique personalities and you're not going to have the vaguest idea how to handle it. Feel free to call me because I can't say that, but that's
But
implied.
yes.
It's implied.
Because how long were you there? Was it 3?
2.5 years.
Okay.
Which is half a year longer than anybody else. So, woo, I did it.
Nice.
I made it past the 2 year mark. Just barely, but I did it. So,
Right. Yay.
freedom, freedom. But so it's been good. I mean, I want good things for all of my coworkers. I hope that the next person who takes my job does even better than I did because I wasn't great at
Right.
everything. So, like, best of luck to them.
Right.
May they love it and last forever. But I'm done. So, if anyone's listening and you're in Connecticut, feel free to reach out. I'm going to need a job starting around August. Preferably not a library, though. Okay. Cool. Thanks. Bye.
She's like, I'm kind of done. I'm over the
Just
library
I
thing.
need a little bit of a break from that. Or I need absolute power. I don't need this weird. I don't have absolute power, but I'm doing all the job of absolute power. So,
Right.
that's all.
Right.
That's fine. Okay. So that's my judge. I'm free.
Yay. You're free. And now you have to move.
And now I have to move again. That's fine. It'll be fun. I'm excited about it.
It's fine. Yes. It's fine.
All right. So I guess that brings us to our topic today of around the world.
Yes.
World. Claire, I believe you go first this week. What story have you brought us from around the world?
I'm going to be talking about Amelia Earhart.
Ooh, I had that thought. But then I was like, nah. But here's Claire doing all the plane crashes. She's gotta love her plane crashes. Literally just edited the plane crash, the disappearing plane episode. So I'm like,
It's just like this topic. I'm like looking and I'm like, what the hell? I don't even,
I understand.
like how do you even search for something
That's
like
the bigger
this?
issue. Is like you have to think of something that will fit it in order to
Like it's just so hard to like search for something that even fits
Mm-hmm.
within this topic. And I'm just like, ah. I mean, I could have just been like a boring history teacher and been like, I'm going to talk to you about Magellan.
Ooh. Christopher Columbus.
Ew. Ew. That's gross.
Yes, it is. Yes, it
That's
is.
gross. No, no
I
thank
may
you.
eventually, if this comes up again, I may do my judgment of the Crusades because it's
Uh,
sort of around the world.
it's
There are
sort of
so
around the
many
world.
Crusades, and they were all stupid. Every last one
That's
of them.
that's true. That's fair.
Okay, so tell
All
us
right.
about Amelia Earhart and yet another plane crash. Thanks, Claire.
All the crashes, apparently. I
Ugh.
do all the
Next time,
crashes.
Claire's gonna do the story of the soccer team that got stuck in the Andes after a plane crash, started eating dead bodies.
Shh.
It's
Just
gonna
stop it.
happen. She's gonna do it.
Yeah. Don't give away all my secrets. Okay. Anyway, all right. Amelia Mary Earhart was born July 24th, 1897 in
Hmm.
Atchison, Kansas.
I'm gonna say
Her
I had no
parents,
idea what her middle name was. I don't think I've ever heard it in my whole life.
me neither.
Amelia Mary?
Yes.
Yeah, they
She was
should have
named
better.
after both of her grandmothers. And oh, you're gonna love this because her mom's name was also Amelia. It's your
Hate.
favorite.
I hate that garbage. Stop it. Stop. Okay, go ahead.
But she went by Amy. The mom went by
Okay.
Amy. So there's Amy and then Amelia. So
Sure,
and
sure.
she had the nickname Millie. So it wasn't like
Fine, I
it's
guess, but
you're like,
only vaguely fine.
you're like,
Mm.
anyway, her parents were Edwin Earhart and Amy Otis.
Mm-hmm.
Amelia Otis. She had a younger sister, Grace Muriel Earhart, who went by Muriel. Nicknames. She went by Millie, and her sister went by Pidge. I don't know why.
Pidge?
Pidge,
I guess they called her Pigeon and then it got shortened to Pidge.
maybe it didn't say,
Weird.
but
Okay.
Pidge.
Let's
Um,
not bring that back.
yeah, no. So they had a rather unconventional upbringing that Amy Earhart wasn't interested in raising nice little girls.
Fair.
Yeah. Oh, real quick. Sources: Wikipedia, biography.com, nationalgeographic.com, and womenhistory.com or
Hmm.
.org. I'll have to go back and check that. I can't remember if it was
That's
.com or
something.
.org. Yeah. Um, they both were rather tomboyish. They weren't forced to always just wear dresses, that they would wear like the bloomer things under the dresses.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like pants because it was like, oh look, I'm free to go climb trees and do things.
Yeah.
They did spend a lot of their childhood outside climbing trees, hunting rats with
Mm-hmm.
rifles. They
Okay.
would collect moths and katydids and worms and tree toads, all the things that little boys do. And one time, with the help of her uncle, Amelia made a ramp and attached it to the roof of their tool shed.
Oh
And
dear.
it mimicked a roller coaster that she saw in St. Louis. And so she went down this ramp in like a wooden box, and then the box busted. She busted her lip and tore her dress, but she was like all excited. And she was like, "Look, Pidge, it's like I can fly."
I
So yeah, she was kind of like a little daredevil too. So
mean,
she
that's
was
fair.
she was really like a little boy. Let's just be honest.
No,
When she was 10,
she was just doing her thing.
that's right. When she was 10, Amelia's dad, Edwin, was transferred to Des Moines, Iowa. And that's when she saw her first aircraft was at the Iowa State Fair.
Ooh.
And at the time, since she really wasn't interested, he tried to get her to like take a ride on it, but she said that it was a thing of rusty wire and wood and not at all interesting. So
Hmm.
she was 10 and she's like, meh, I don't care. But Edwin Earhart was an alcoholic and not good with money. So
Well, that's not a shocker.
it
Okay.
was it's one of those things where it was like they would do okay, but then he would go on one of his little benders and
Mm-hmm.
he'd become money would like get tight and things would become hard. So then Amelia and Muriel were sent back to Kansas, still with their grandparents, while mom and dad stayed in Iowa. So they were homeschooled by a governess, and but Amelia was extremely fond of reading. She loved to read. 1909, the Earhart family was back under one roof in Des Moines. I guess he got his shit back together for a little bit
Hmm.
and got money back. And that was the first time Amelia would be in public school at the age of 12 in the seventh grade. Sorry. Ugh, gross.
Tis
Gosh,
the
it's like,
allergy season. I understand.
I know, it's awful. 1915, the Earharts moved to St. Paul, Minnesota. He worked for a railroad company. And then while he was there, he tried to get another position in Springfield, Missouri, but it fell through. And I don't know if he quit his job at St. Paul, but because the other one fell through, it looked like he was going to have like this whole big, like, I'm not going to have a job. So Amy's just like, deuces. They seem very on again, off again. Like it was always
Right.
like she'd take the girls and leave and go somewhere. And then they were back together. And then she'd take the
Right.
girls and send them. Yeah. So this time she took the girls and went to Chicago, moved in with some family who lived there. And so while they were there, Amelia searched for a high school that had the best science program instead of just going to the high school that
Hmm.
was closest. So she went to Hyde Park High School and she graduated in 1916 because she wanted, because the school that was closest, she said that their chemistry department just basically, it was just like a sink. Like it was not a big, their chemistry was like,
Okay.
eh.
Hmm.
Um, in 1917, she visited Muriel in Canada, and World War II was going on at the time. And while she was up there, she happened to see some wounded soldiers returning from the war. And so she decided she was going to get trained as a nurse, and she stayed up there and she helped. And she began working in Toronto. And she wound up working with a bunch of pilots, and she would hear their stories, and that started like sparking her interest in
And then she
flying,
was
hearing
like,
all these pilots.
I want to do that.
Right,
Sounds
yeah,
way more fun than this.
right. And then she attended Columbia University for a year and she dropped out and went to California to be with her parents, who apparently got back together.
Well, you know.
And she went with her dad, 1920. She and her father went to an aerial meet in Long Beach, California, and her dad paid for her to be a passenger on like a 10-minute airplane flight.
Oh, hmm.
And that was when she first knew that she had to fly because she was finally up in the air and it was just 10 minutes, but she was like, I have to do this. And so after that, Amelia recruited female aviator Nita Snook to be her flying instructor. And she worked a bunch of odd jobs to pay for her lessons. Like she was a photographer, a
Hmm.
stenographer, truck driver, to because she just wanted to fly and she would need to pay for these lessons. And then she wound up cut her hair short to look like other women aviators because they tuck it under that hat with the goggles and all that.
Right.
In 1923, she wound up getting her pilot's license, and she was one of only 16 women in
Ah,
the world
in
to
the
get her pilot's
world.
in the world to have
Wow.
her pilot's license. Yeah. And she wound up purchasing a secondhand biplane. She painted it yellow and she called it the Canary.
Okay.
Oh, but before that, before she got her license, which I was like, this is weird that she did this before she actually got her license. I don't know if it's part of her like lessons or flying training or whatever. In 1922, she got to 1,400 feet, which was a world record for altitude for a female pilot.
Oh.
So she was already setting records before she even got her license. In 1924, her mother's inheritance had run out. So her parents divorced. Amelia sold her plane because she couldn't keep up with it because
Hmm.
she didn't have any more money. She moved with her mother to Boston and tried to go back to Columbia University again, but she wound up having to dropping it out because she had no more finances.
Right.
Money was an issue. So she got a job as a teacher. She also got a job as a social worker. And in 1927, she became a member of the American Aeronautical Society's Boston chapter, and she started to write articles promoting flying for a local newspaper, and she started to develop a following. So she kind of
Hmm.
became a local celebrity in Boston just because she was a woman writing about flying
Right.
because
Right.
nobody was doing that. And then a year later, in 1928, she was the first female passenger on a transatlantic flight, and it was from Newfoundland to Wales.
Wow.
And when she got back from that, they started nicknaming her Lady Lindy, because Charles
Oh,
Lindbergh
right.
was the guy who did the first transatlantic solo flight. So when she got back, she wrote a book because the flight itself lasted 20 hours and 40 minutes. And
Wow.
that's the name of the book was 20 hours, 40 minutes. And it was about her experience being a passenger. And a guy named George Putnam, he was also one of the ones who was like, he publicized like the whole flight thing, like her being the passenger and,
Mm-hmm.
first female, blah, blah, blah. But he was the collaborator and publisher of her book, and he promoted the book with scheduling like lecture tours and product endorsements, which led to promotions and contributions to women's fashion in Cosmopolitan magazine.
Oh, well,
And she became associate editor of Cosmo.
wow.
And with all of this, she hoped to influence her influence would contradict all this negative stereotypes about women, and it would help open more opportunities
Mm-hmm.
for women in especially like male dominated fields,
Which at that
And
point
it's a
was almost every field.
oh, absolutely, yeah. And it said that when she was a kid that she would keep a scrapbook of anytime she see a paper article about a woman that did something big in a male dominated field,
Oh,
that she
oh,
would cut it out and keep it. That she always was fascinated by women who were able to make a name for themselves
yeah, yeah.
in these, when men were it back then. It's like it's all men. In 1929, she did a successful solo flight across North America, and she also entered the Women's Air Derby, which was flown from Santa Monica to Cleveland, and she placed
Hmm.
third in
Hmm.
that. Um, and in 1931, she set another world altitude record at 18,415 feet. And she also became the first president of the 99s, which was a female pilot organization.
Oh, well, there you go.
And also in 31, she wound up marrying her publicist, George Putnam. And he had previously been married to a woman who was the Crayola heiress.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And there was like speculation that he and Amelia were like having an affair,
Um,
but actually his wife had an affair with like their kid's tutor. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I know. But when they got divorced, he immediately started trying to pursue Amelia, and she turned him down a couple of times. But then she finally said yes. But on their wedding day, and this is what I think is hilarious. I love this so much.
Okay.
I'm here for this energy. On their wedding day, she sent him like a letter, and a little snippet from this letter says, "I want you to understand, I shall not hold you to any medieval code of faithfulness to me, nor shall I consider myself bound to you similarly."
Okay. Um, all right.
And she's also a badass because she didn't change her last name.
No kidding.
She's
Damn.
like, yeah, I'm not changing my last. I'm
Like, I'm not
keeping
changing my
I'm
name. I'll marry
keeping
you,
Earhart.
but like,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be faithful. You don't have to be faithful, and I'm keeping my last name. Thanks. All right. I'm here for it. You go, Amelia.
I was like, wow, she is ballsy, and I am here for this. I
Hmm.
had no idea. I was like, interesting. So she wanted to be the first to circumnavigate the world.
Mm-hmm.
And in 1937, she got together a crew. She had a Lockheed Electra L-10E plane. I don't know what that means.
Nope. But that sounds great.
Yes. Her crew was a guy named Captain Harry Manning, who was going to be her first navigator. Fred Noonan was her second navigator, and then a guy named Paul Mance was her tech advisor, and he actually was like a stunt plane person.
Hmm.
Like he did stunt plane in like I guess shows and movies and stuff like that. Their flight plan was to start in Oakland, California, fly to Hawaii, then Australia, then India, somewhere in Africa, Florida, and then back to California. They made it to Hawaii and hung out there for 3 days because they had to do some repairs to the plane.
Mm-hmm.
When they were taking off to leave, something went wrong, and there were like some people say they saw a tire blowout. Other people said it was pilot error, including the guy Paul Mance. He said it was pilot error, but there's like discrepancies in what happened. Anyway, she had to like loop around and just come like immediately back.
Right.
And whatever happened, the plane was so bad they had to ship it back to California for repairs.
Oh,
So they just had to like scrap that flight.
right.
So when she got back, she and her husband George uh, got additional funding to try again for a new flight, and they adjusted the flight plan, and they were going to go the opposite direction. So instead of going across the Pacific, then they were going to go across to from Oakland to like Florida first,
Right.
and that way around. And this time, Manning and Mance couldn't join due to previous commitments and something about Man. There was some kind of like something with his contract where he couldn't do it this time. So this time it was just going to be Amelia Earhart and Fred Noonan.
Mm-hmm.
And so June 1st, they made it to Miami on that first leg. Um, and then they flew on and they were able to make it all the way to Ley, New Guinea,
Mm-hmm.
and that was June 29th, 1937. So they had flown 22,000 miles of this trip, this world
Right.
around the world trip. And they only had 7,000 miles to go to get
Wow.
back to
Yeah.
where they needed to go. Um, so in Ley, New Guinea, Amelia got dysentery.
Oh,
Yeah. And
not
so
good.
they had to stay, no. So they had to stay several days for her to recuperate, obviously. And they had to make several adjustments to the plane. They wound up doing like extra fuel on board, and it said they packed the parachutes away because at this point they were just going to be flying over water, so there was no point in having them.
Right. It's like just parachute into the water and die. So
Yeah, or just yeah.
fair.
So, uh, um, so they planned to head to this place called Howland Island, which was between Australia and Hawaii, and apparently it's so teeny tiny.
Right.
It's like 6,500 feet by 1,600 feet.
Oh my, that is tiny.
Yes. And so it was this all this stuff about using celestial navigation and radio communication with the US Coast Guard ship Itasca,
Mm-hmm.
and to like find it. I mean, because especially like if it was cloudy that day,
Right.
you couldn't use. I mean, because it was like you wouldn't be able to see it if you were so high up. Like
Right.
it was that
That
small.
small.
Yeah. And so they wound up leaving July 2nd, 1937 at 12:30 a.m. And they said, and I don't know why they did this. They left certain radio equipment behind so they would have more fuel canisters.
Okay.
And somebody said that they thought the radio antenna on the plane might have been damaged, and that they possibly were using inaccurate maps.
Oh no.
So where they thought the island would be was actually 6 miles off from where it actually
Oh
was.
no.
Yes. And there was also like a miscommunication with the check-in time with the Itasca Coast Guard ship because they were using naval time zone and they were on Greenwich Civil Time, which there was like a 30-minute difference. And there was also like a miscommunication on which frequency they were using.
Oh my
With
goodness.
I mean, it was just yeah.
Everything that
It
could go wrong did go wrong. Got
it
it.
was like a cluster. It just
Oh.
seemed like so at 7:20 a.m. they reported their position 20 miles southwest off of the Nukumanu Islands. And at 7:42 Itasca received a transmission from them and replied, but they're not sure if it was received. And I think they tried calling back a couple times, and that's when they realized that they had lost all contact. So
Mm-hmm.
then the Itasca began immediate search,
Right.
and then couldn't find anything. And ultimately, once they realized, I guess FDR at the time, because it's like this, everybody knows who Amelia Earhart is at this time and what she's
Right.
trying to do. So ultimately, FDR authorized a, a search party that cost like $4 million. It was like 66 aircraft and 9 ships to go out and look for this plane and Amelia and Fred Noonan. And he called it off July 18th, 1937. So he looked for them for like, I don't know, 2 weeks
Mm-hmm.
ish. And then, but George Putnam, her husband, he financed additional search and even like called on the use of psychics to help find
Mm-hmm.
his wife. So, I mean, obviously he cared for her
Yeah.
because, I mean, or I feel like he would have just been like, give up. But by October of 1937, he was like, it's not gonna
Yeah.
happen. And then 2 years later, January 5th, 1939, she was officially declared dead. And then obvious theories that they just crashed into the ocean is,
Right.
a big one. However, there's one that they landed in the Nikumaro. I've looked this up and it's always like, there's so many R's and O's in this. Nikumaroro Reef, which is a tiny island 350 miles southeast of the Howland Island, which is what they were aiming for.
Oh wow,
So
okay.
they would have gone like way
That's
off
way,
course.
way of course, yeah.
Yeah. And they think that they landed there because they found there have been like found improvised tools, pieces of clothing,
Oh.
some kind of plexiglass that matched like the size and the shape of like a window from the plane. And they found a jar of freckle cream, which
Freckle
she had.
cream? Interesting.
Freckle cream. Yeah. Um in 1940 they did find bones. Like somebody had sat under a tree and died.
Oh.
So and then in 2014 they found a piece of the plane in this area, which they were like this, it matched the description of her plane. In 2018, there was an analysis of the bones found in 1940
Mm-hmm.
because we have the technology now.
Right, right. Yeah.
And so it said Earhart is more similar to the bones than 99% of individuals in a large reference sample. Strongly supports the Nukamoro bones belong to Amelia Earhart. So
Oh.
it's not like 100%,
But
but
it's
it's
like
most
the odds
likely
are it is her. Is basically what
yes.
you're saying. It's like we can't confirm 100%, but odds are this is her.
Yes.
Wow. I did not know
That they
that at
were
all.
just like stranded, they landed or crashed and lived. And there were also like a few days after this happened, like they went missing.
Mm-hmm.
There were, I think they said in Canada that they were still able to use some of the radio on the airplane. Like the airplane wasn't totally shot.
Right.
They were able to, like somebody in Canada picked up a transmission saying that we're still alive. Tell my husband. And then somebody else, like, I can't remember where they said it was, but it was almost on the other side of the country.
Mm-hmm.
That's like, we've been here for days. It was just and that was like the last time. It was like 3 days later after that one in Canada got it, then
Mm-hmm.
somebody else heard something like over a radio. And so they
Oh.
were still, so they were alive for a while. But I guess it was just one of those things like they just ran out of supplies and starved to death on this island because it sounds like there's not anybody that
Yeah.
lives there.
Yeah, there's nothing there.
I
Wow.
mean, you're
Gosh,
talking like a castaway
that's worse. I
situation.
guess in my mind, well, several things. One, I thought she was alone. I didn't realize she had anyone with her. Um, But two, like I thought she just disappeared. Like she was supposed to land somewhere and she didn't, so they just assumed her plane went down somewhere. But to think that she actually survived on an island for a while, but
Right.
no one looked for her there, so she
And
died.
also, I didn't even realize that she was married.
Yeah, I don't think I knew that either.
Like there are so many
Hmm.
things like going into this. I'm like, man, I did not know
Yeah,
that.
I knew very little of that. I did know that she ended up going the opposite way flying than she meant to, meaning
Yeah.
that she would have done the long leg first, so she wouldn't have been as tired and would have been less likely to make a mistake. But
Yeah.
that's all I knew, honestly. So, that's so sad. What a
I
downer.
know. It is.
Huh.
But yeah, so that is my around the world, well, almost around the world
Almost
story.
did it. That's so sad. It's like I almost made it,
Almost
and
around.
then I didn't. Then I
Yes. Then I
landed
died.
on an island and died, waiting to be rescued. While
Yes.
like transmitting stuff that people could hear. Oh, that's so
Yeah.
awful. Oh,
Right.
I hate that.
I know. And they said that also that they found like a woman's compact
Ugh.
like later, so they're like you said, not 100%, but it's like
Right.
there are things
But
there that are like
highly
they're pretty
likely is what we're going with. It's highly
yes, highly
likely that
likely.
somehow they ended up on this
See, and
island.
I'm like you. I thought it was like a Bermuda Triangle situation.
Yeah.
Like she just
She just
disappeared.
disappeared.
Like
I think that's just how it's been told to me, maybe, but wow.
right, right.
Hmm.
And
That
it
was
was just like
excellent. Thank you, Claire. I mean, like
you're
I
welcome.
knew not enough of that story.
Yes. But anyway, yes. So that's the story of Amelia Earhart and her almost around the world. But I mean, she still was have been a good one too for like badass women in history. I mean,
Hmm. I won't hold you to that medieval concept of
I was like, I have to stick that in there because
it's too
that was
amazing.
like I found that and I was like, that's amazing that she wrote that
The medieval
hymn on her
concept of
wedding day.
faithfulness. I won't hold you to that. Okay. And you won't expect me to be held to that either.
I know.
Okay. Got it. Boy.
It's like I know. I'm like, so do you all really love each other? Like, what's going on here? The fact that
Yeah,
it's like,
because it
oh, we're
sounded
gonna
more
have an
like
open
he kind of
marriage,
wore her down and she was like, all right, fine, but we're
but yeah,
we're not requiring faithfulness then. It's fine.
it's
Okay.
like, so don't tell me they didn't have open marriages back then. Psh,
Amelia
pshaw.
Earhart.
She was a pioneer.
Yes, she
Let
was.
me tell
Thank
you,
you,
in
Amelia.
more ways than one. For women, for marriages,
Hmm.
in clothing. I mean, she was all over the place.
She really was. Very
I
cool.
mean, seriously. Anyway, so what story have you brought us? Because you sent me that cryptic text, and I was like, I don't even know what to say to that. So,
Okay. So the story that I am bringing you is the story of the sandwich that changed the world and created Pilates and vegetarian sausage.
sandwich.
Sandwich.
Okay, I'm here for
My
food.
sources are medium.com, the Smithsonian, the New York Post, PBS, Wikipedia, and Britannica.
Britannica.
So my story is about World War One. Yay!
Yay! Hey, where are we in the same time period again?
That's just who we are. We can't help ourselves. We just can't help ourselves.
We cannot.
Okay,
Always in the
so
same time period.
we're gonna start off kind of at the end of the 1800s. Kind of in the back half of the 1800s, we still have the Ottoman Empire hanging out, but it was
Okay.
weakening. And Austria-Hungary was like, we like Bosnia. We're gonna just take that. That's ours now. It's ours. We like it.
Yeah, it's ours.
And Serbia, of course, was like, I don't love this because Bosnia is our people.
Right.
We want Bosnia. And they really wanted Bosnia to join Serbia so that they could unite the people. And also in this time, we have Russia being all hateful because they hated that Austria had all this power. So it's kind of like the end of the 1800s is where things are.
Yeah.
Just countries being countries and being all like, I want
Right.
that. No, I want that. No, I want that, But by the time we get to the beginning of the 1900s, the Ottoman Empire had started regaining some strength. And so Austria was not wanting to give up Bosnia. And then we had the Balkan Wars. This is very quick, just like overview to get us to where we need to be.
Gotcha.
The Balkan Wars happened in 1912 to 1913. Bosnia and Serbia still really wanting to like unite together. They're very angry that Austria is still like holding on to Bosnia. It's a whole big
Right.
thing, blah, blah, blah. But so Serbia is like, fuck this. Let's get the Black Hand involved.
The Black Hand.
Which, as far as I can tell, was, you know, sort of like a resistance effort, a terrorist group. I don't know how you want to, it depends on what side you're on as to what you consider the Black
Right.
Hand.
Right.
So they were wanting to, help Serbia out. And so that is kind of the setup when in 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand decides he needs to prove his power, throw his weight around as the heir to the
Mhm.
Austrian throne. And so he's like, you know what we need to do? We need to really just take our dick out, slap people around with it by going to, because it's absolutely what this is. Let's
Right,
all just own
right.
it. By going to Sarajevo, which is the capital of Bosnia, and being like, I'm gonna go look at the troops because they're my troops because it's my country. Is basically
Right.
the thing. So he goes, um, and it's June 28th, 1914. Franz and his wife, Sophie or Sophia, I forget which one, were met at the rail station that they of course took the royal train in, as you do.
Mhm.
So they're met at the rail station, and they are taken to City Hall for a big reception. So this is a planned route that their car is on. People are lining the streets, partly to be like it's, the in the same way that people would line the streets if Prince William went
Right.
to one of their whatevers, it's
Right,
our
yeah.
blah blah blah. Let's go blah blah blah. Let's go watch and look and cheer or jeer, who knows, whichever side you're on.
Yes. Right.
But on this route, there were 7 members of the Black Hand waiting for the car to drive through. One man, I'm going to butcher these names. I'm just telling you now. So prepare yourself.
Yes.
One man named Najelko Kabrinovic threw a grenade at the Archduke's car. But it was a grenade that had a very long fuse. So it bounced off the
Uh,
car and ended up going underneath the car behind it before it ever exploded.
mm,
At which point it did cause some injuries. I don't think anyone died, but a couple people were injured as a result of the explosion. Kabrinovic, of course, is like shit, 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 shit. So he does what he's supposed to do. He swallows his cyanide capsule because that's where we are. Everybody's got their cyanide capsules. And he
right.
jumps into the river Milajaka? Milayaka? Milayaka? He jumps into the river.
Gotcha.
River. Uh, However, he didn't die because the river was only 2 feet deep, and it turns out his cyanide capsule had expired, so it wasn't as effective as it needed to be.
Oh no.
So he neither died from poisoning
Yeah.
nor from drowning, and so he was captured and arrested.
So note to self, cyanide
Make sure
capsules
those
can
things are up to
expire.
date, man. No, gotta check those expiration dates. Which how ridiculous.
Yikes. Dang. There's a flaw. Oh my gosh.
So the other 6 men at that point scatter after the failed attempt. They're like, oh shit, let's get out of here. So Archduke, he's still alive. they continue on to City Hall where he goes and he has like the reception, but he's also kind of complaining about his treatment at this point in the city. You know, people trying to like blow
Yeah.
him up, hurting his other people, being a, whatever. But after the big reception is over, the speeches are made, and he's done his whatever he's supposed to do. He decides that he wants to go to the hospital to visit the people who did get injured from the grenade.
Yeah.
And they kind of decided in and amongst themselves that they should not take the planned route that they had like set aside for their usage while they were in the city.
Yeah.
That instead of being on the planned route where they had a grenade lobbed at them, perhaps instead they should take an alternate route to go to the hospital on the way out of town.
Right.
And so everyone's like, yeah, that's a good idea. And they all agree. But then they didn't bother to tell the drivers they're going to take a different route.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Okay. This seems like
It's so
I
stupid.
just
It's so stupid. Guys, this all I mean, we all know this caused World War One. So like,
Mhm.
why?
Right.
So they all get into the cars, the drivers start driving, and like there's a general who's sitting up with the driver in the same car as the Archduke, and he's like, "What are you doing? We're not supposed to be taking this path. We're supposed." He's like, "We're not supposed to be on this route. We're supposed to take something different." And the driver's like, "Oh, well, no one told me." So he then
Wow.
slows down the car to do a turn, to turn around so they can go on a different route. And he does this right in front of Schiller's Delicatessen. I mean, it's not really a delicatessen. I think that's just it's some kind of a cafe
Yeah.
named Schiller's. And inside the cafe is a man called Gavrilo Principe, who is another member of the Black Hand that had been part of that first assassination plot, but then scattered because it failed. And it seems he had, maybe in order to deal with the stress and anxiety, or just because he's a little peckish, he happened to just go to
He's like,
this
"Well,
cafe to get a
that
sandwich.
day my assassination attempt failed. Let's go get some
Right.
coffee."
I mean, well, he's hungry. He's got to get a sandwich. It failed. I'm
Yeah.
hungry. I need to eat something. I'm sure since this is, Sarajevo, it's not really a sandwich, and that's just what we've collectively
Right,
come to
right.
at this point. But we're calling it a sandwich because I don't know what else it was. So he's at this cafe. He's got him a sandwich, and as he comes out of the cafe, he sees the car driving the Archduke coming and doing the slow, like kind of stopping to slow and turn around, and he's like, "Opportunity knocks."
He's like, "Second chances."
And so he comes out, he has his gun with him, and he shoots the Archduke from a distance of only 5 feet, because that's how close he can get to the car.
Wow.
And so he ends up hitting the Archduke in the neck, as well as his wife Sophie is here. His wife Sophie gets shot in the abdomen. Now he too, because he did not yet know, but he too took his cyanide pill,
Mhm.
which, as we know, unfortunately was expired and not working. So he didn't die. And so he holds his gun to his head, but couldn't bring himself to shoot himself. And so he ends up getting
Ugh.
arrested instead.
Oh no.
Oh, the Black Hand. Apparently, they really need to ensure that their cyanide capsules are up to date, and maybe just hand out new ones for
Right.
each one of these things.
Yes.
Just saying.
Right.
So the Archduke and his wife both die from this attack. And Austria, of course, is pissed, as they should be. And so Austria blamed Serbia, since Serbia had been encouraging the Black Hand to do this by, giving them
Yes.
weapons. It's like, here's some weapons to go do things.
Yes.
So Austria's mad, and they want to invade Serbia because mad. And Serbia's like, fuck this. We're calling on our besties, Russia, to come help. And Austria's like, well, hell, we can't handle Russia alone. So they call on Germany for help. And Germany's like, yeah, sure. But that really pissed off the French. And so Germany was like, we'll defeat France by attacking them through Belgium. But Belgium had a guarantee from Britain that if anybody attacked them, they would attack the attacker. And so this is insane. So they spent like 2 weeks. This happened on it was like June 14th. They spent like 2 or 3 weeks like having diplomatic relations in which all this was happening. Everyone was arguing and it's like, no, but I'll help you and I'll help you and we'll help you and we hate you, so we're gonna do this, but I'll help you. All that nonsense. And so on July 28th, 1914, Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia. And within a week, the whole of Europe was at war. And so we have World War One.
Hooray.
Hooray! Now, I'm not going to go into World War One because it's a lot. But as you know, all of those people and more all got caught up into the war, and it was bad.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we finally get to the end of World War One, when we finally have ceased, everything is done, there are now all these new states in Eastern Europe that are weak and very vulnerable to the rise of Hitler, who's going to be coming down the pipe soon. There were a lot of sanctions that were levied on Germany, as well as just the general devastation left from World War One that made Germany more susceptible to Hitler's rise in power, and that nationalism push that really encompassed Germany. Also, as a result of World War One, the U.S. adopted a policy of isolationism that kept them out of the growing crisis into World War II until we got drug
They
in.
had to. Yep.
As a result of World War One, 4 imperial dynasties collapsed. The Habsburgs of Austria-Hungary, the Hohenzollerns of Germany, the Sultanate of the Ottoman Empire, and the Romanovs of Russia, just gone by the end. And the mass movement of all of those soldiers and refugees, trying to get away from war-torn areas, helped spread one of the world's deadliest influenza pandemics, the Spanish flu.
Yay.
The sandwich caused all this, I'm just letting you know. And all of this, of course, leads to World War II, which leads to the nuclear bomb and the inclusion of Asian countries into the world drama. It's just insanity. The Bolshevik Revolution was a result of World War One, or happened within World War One, and then World War Two, and then Lord, when that ended, Russia took some areas back, and then there was communism, and there's Berlin Wall, and then there was a Cold War, and then the space race. It's insane how many things happened as a result of the Archduke being assassinated, and just
right
insanity. But that sandwich not only landed us on the moon, but also led to some really cool things, including wristwatches.
What?
So prior to World War One, a wristwatch was a feminine jewelry item. Men didn't wear wristwatches. They had pocket watches.
Pocket watches, yeah.
But pocket watches weren't super helpful in trenches, and so they created wristwatches for men, and they put a little protective cage over it, and then they used radium so they could see in the dark. Know where that went. It also
Yes, we do.
It also created the mass production of prosthetic limbs, which is bizarre, but World War One caused a lot of prosthetic limbs to be needed.
Right.
But more importantly, and the point of the story, that sandwich brought us Pilates, Claire.
Did it?
It did.
How so?
So, German boxer and bodybuilder Joseph Hubertus Pilates was actually in a British internment camp. And while he was in this internment camp, he was trying to help motivate other prisoners including those who were bedridden and really injured, by trying to get them to exercise to promote movement and health, to just help them feel better. And so he created Pilates while in an internment camp.
What?
And after the war, like after he was released, he and his wife developed it into the exercise philosophy that we know, Pilates.
So it's just wild to me that this workout trend that all these soccer moms want to do
Mm-hmm.
came out of an internment camp.
An internment camp. Mm-hmm. It sure
Wow.
did. But also, it brought us vegetarian sausages. So the reason that we have Beyond Meat, Beyond Sausage options at, I guess, Starbucks has it and some other places is because in World War One they had food shortages, as
Hmm.
happen when you cut off supply lines, particularly meat shortages. And so Germans created a cheap meat alternative made from soya, flour, corn, barley, and ground rice. And so I think that the early ones were not super
Right.
tasty,
Probably not.
but it became a thing that later, found their way into Todayland, where we really embrace a lot of the alternative meats. With the right seasonings, you can't tell.
I mean, that's fair.
But so that is the
If you drown
story.
it in gravy, you
If
can't
you drown it in
tell.
gravy, you can't. That is the story of how a sandwich led to Pilates and vegetarian sausages via World War One.
That's wild. That is wild.
It is wild. I will say to all of those who may be screaming at me, there is some suggestion that maybe the dude didn't actually go in for a sandwich and that that's all a lie. They can't quite trace it back to a specific source. But I mean, it happened in front of Schiller's. Like it seemed to be a very specific place and it really was a cafe and he was there. And it had been a long time since the initial attempt because he went to City Hall and did all the things. So one can assume he was there getting something to eat and
It
something to
was
drink.
either a sandwich or a cup of coffee.
I
Okay.
mean, either way, either way.
Fine.
But I just was like, it's a bizarre story with all the expired cyanide capsules
I mean, right. Yeah,
and
like that's
jumping
like,
into a
wait,
river and
what?
it's like 2 feet deep. And you're like, well, okay, I guess I'm not going to die now. Boy.
That's wild.
And just like if they had bothered to tell the drivers of the car, hey, we're gonna take a different route.
Right.
It
Like that's
was,
just like, come on.
it's such a because you have to wonder if they hadn't assassinated him then, would it have led to World War One? Like if he
Right.
had survived, what would the world be like now? Like I assume eventually tensions would have boiled over, but maybe not to this level.
Right.
It might have been a more contained thing instead of the entire world coming in and being like boom, 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 explode, explode, explode. So
But it is, you're like, if that hadn't happened, you're like, would
what?
Hitler
Yeah,
ever like come into power? Like ever, you know?
right. Because Hitler was only able to rise up from the because of all of the sanctions and the devastation in Germany. That's really
Right.
what helped him have like footing and be charismatic. So I don't know. I don't remember being taught any of this in my history classes, other than
Right.
his
No.
assassination led to World War One, and you're like, it sure did, absolutely did. Everybody had like besties in the wings, being like, "We got you, we fight for you, no matter what it is, we'll fight." Okay, seems extreme, but teach their own. What do I know? So there it is. That is
Well,
my around the world
that
story.
was Interesting.
All right.
I had no idea. I was like, whoa, wait, what?
Right. Well, and like I know that I learned about the things that came out of war. Like I know that war is always leads to like a time of innovation because you have to come up with new things or whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't recall ever learning that that's how Pilates came about or vegetarian
No.
sausages or even
No.
wristwatches for that matter. So,
Right.
hmm.
Interesting.
Well, Claire,
Yes.
are you ready for this week's sweary affirmation?
Yes. Hit me.
Do something today that makes you feel fucking fabulous.
Yes.
Yes,
Fucking fabulous.
absolutely. All right. It must be time for tarot time with April. Spooky, spooky. Do, 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 do. Well, I will say, so I was editing tell me when to stop. I was editing our podcast that dropped, I guess technically today or last night,
Mm-hmm.
whatever.
Yeah.
And I kind of keep track of the tarot cards from that. And that was like that we had Judgment and the Pope and I think the Nine of Pentacles. And so
Mm-hmm.
and it was like, basically it's time for a change. And I'm like, well, I did quit my job. It's time to learn new things and earn stuff. And I'm like, I did quit my job and it's time to do something else. Okay.
You're like, and yeah.
And I'm like, okay. And then it's like, and then treat yourself the way that you treat other people. And I'm like, yes, I need that
Stop.
because I need a break. I am tired, tired.
You're tired.
Ah. All right, we are starting our week with the Eight of Cups. Our middle of the week will be filled with the Seven of Pentacles.
Mm-hmm.
And we will end our week with the Ten of Swords, stabbing us in the back over and over and over and over again. So, yay for that. Aren't you excited?
Sword.
So happy. You're so excited.
Mm-hmm.
I can just feel it. Okay. Eight of Cups. I call this the hangover card. Oh
Nice.
dear. Uh, it can be brought into including overdoing it in other ways, like being a tyrant at work, being a party girl when you should be home. It's kind of the morning after walk of shame card. You somehow walked away from the important truths in your life and have to shake your head to knock the cobwebs out. It's a card that happens just before the client asks for redemption. Da, da, da. Let's see. Oh, essentially, moderation is the key. So don't overdo, Claire. Don't overdo. Don't overdo it, guys.
That card must be the card for Joe Allen.
Everything in moderation.
Because that is what oh God. Anytime I went to a party or anything like that, it was always like, don't overeat, don't do this, everything in moderation. God,
Ugh,
if I ever heard the word
Lord.
moderation, if I had $1 for every time my dad said moderation to me, jeez, I could quit my job.
Oh dear. All right.
that is Joe Allen's card.
So apparently we're starting our week with a hangover. The middle of the week is gonna be the story of the little red hen. I remember this card.
Mm.
Hard work and waiting for that work to become something tangible. It's fulfilling and enchanting for those who can pace themselves. That's nice. I'm here for that, little red hen. Just keep doing it. Just keep going. Just keep doing it. And then we're gonna be stabbed in the back with 10 swords.
Yay.
This is just the worst damn card.
Yes.
The best thing that you can say when this card shows up is that at least things won't get any worse, because this is literally the bottom.
Awesome.
It's excessive, painful, excruciating, and final. Wait.
Hooray.
This one's incredibly long. So I'm gonna just let's see. If essentially it's just lots of bad things and
all the bad things.
All the bad things. I think rather than embracing the "you're a failure if you don't get up" ethos, maybe we can accept that wounds need healing, that sometimes everything really does suck and you need to lie down on your couch and watch all of Broad City while eating boxes of cereal. Broad City? I don't know that show. Sorry. Author of the book.
Neither.
I don't know that one.
Let's Google it.
Sometimes you need to whine and cry and tell your friends that everything is awful, because sometimes everything is awful and that's valid. Give yourself 2 weeks to pout and be pissed and sad and pathetic, and then it's time to assess what you're going to do next. So, okay. So it looks like a really bad week. Awesome. Yay us.
Hooray.
Hangover. And then we're going to work really hard, but then it's all going to fail anyway because we're at the rock bottom. So awesome. Thanks, tarot cards.
Oh, Broad City is a web series.
Oh.
That moved to Comedy Central as a half-hour scripted series.
Sure. I believe you. I don't know anything about it. Okay.
It says 20-something best friends who were trying to navigate life in New York, despite that their adventures always seem to lead down unexpected, bizarre paths. They have very little money, but they are survivors who aren't afraid to throw themselves into sticky situations, no matter how messy the end results may be.
Huh.
I've never heard of that.
Never. All right. What is happening next week, Claire?
I don't know.
What's on our wheel of fate? Fate. No whammies. No whammies. No whammies. We're gonna do cryptids. I haven't had a cryptid in a while. I'll have to find us some random cryptids to do.
I have a whole calendar at work I can look through.
There you go. Maybe I'll find me a Connecticut cryptid to indulge in. That'll be fun. All right. Well, there we have it. It's been a fun week around the world. Unless you were Amelia Earhart and then you starved to death on an island because no one came to look for you there, but
because you were 350 miles off course.
That's a lot of miles off course.
I mean,
I just
saying.
Everything about that is awful.
You said something about the Spanish flu. I did read a blip that said she actually had the Spanish flu, and she had it so bad they had to do they had to like cut something in her sinuses and put like a drain.
Oh God!
Like drain for like something,
and
that also would affect her flying.
So the sandwich
in her hearing.
What you're saying is that the sandwich is the reason that she got lost.
It might be.
The sandwich caused it to happen. She would have survived.
Maybe. Oh my God! What is the sandwich?
What is the sandwich? Oh,
because it would mess with her ears. Because it really like did a number on her sinus cavity.
It's too much, man. Too much. The sandwich is the root of all evil. What can I say?
We need to find out what sandwich it was.
I tried to look that up. There's no idea. It's because it probably wasn't anything like we would call a sandwich.
Right.
But the best guesses or closest thing that it probably would have been like a cheese sandwich. So
no.
The cheese did it, Claire.
No.
Yep, sorry.
Damn it. I still eat cheese. Forget that.
You're right. Well, until next time, you can find us in all the things and at all the places at.
Brunch and Judge.
Please follow, like, subscribe, comment. Tell us any other suggestions you have.
Right.
And you can send us story ideas or any topics you would like us to add to the wheel to us at.
Brunchandjudge@gmail.com.
So until next time, keep on brunching,
And keep on judging.
but maybe don't eat a sandwich.
But go ahead and eat one.
Bye.
Bye.